video, I showed how I had to remove that cowl panel and install some windshield washer squirter nozzles. So I did that, put the cowl panel back on, aligned everything as far as the body gaps, and was done. And then at the end of the video, I showed that I wanted to polish up the windshield wiper arms. So I did just that. I polished up the arms, and they were all nice and pretty. So I went out and bought me some windshield wiper blades so that I can go ahead and install the wiper arms on the car. So did that, installed it, and decided, let me see how they work. So I hit the switch and all hell broke loose. Let me show you what I got going on. I have to remove that darn cowl panel once again. Let me show you. So here are the windshield wipers, and they came out nice and shiny, so I'm very happy with the polishing job I did. They're still satin and not chrome, so I'm happy with that. And aligning them, they look beautiful. They're right there at the bottom trim, which is what I like as far as the look of windshield wipers. Now the windshield wipers themselves, they're the blades, they're 16 inches, and I made them 16 inch. I bought them 16 inch because these, which I assume are the original from 1974, these are 16 inches. So I went with what was I went with the size that was on the car. But there's only one problem. It looks perfect here, but in motion, this arm, which is the one that I'm worried about, goes all the way past the trim and into the A-pillar. So I'm going to spray the windshield with some distilled water and see if I have some right here. That way we can have the wipers moving freely. And I'm using distilled water because when it dries, it does not leave any water spots. So I don't want any water spots on the paint or on the windshield or anything like that. So I'm going to turn on the key on and let you see how far that windshield wiper travels. See how far it travels? It goes right into the thing. Let me stop it. There. So pretty much goes all the way past the trim and into the A-pillar. Now this one I'm not worried about because it's fine, so I don't have to worry about that. But I need to figure out what to do as far as getting that travel to end maybe right around here instead of all the way down here without changing the sides of the blades. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take apart this cowl, and this is going to be a great opportunity for you to see what I did when I moved the windshield wiper motor from here to behind the fender. So you'll get to see the wiper linkage because that's what I'm going to actually work on. You will see, I will show you what I did on a cardboard box in theory to actually limit the travel distance of the wiper arm, basically slowing this arm down but not slowing that arm down. So I'm going to show you that right now. So here's what I used to make this theory be put in practice. Basically a cardboard box and a couple pieces of cardboard. We're going to suppose that this stick right here is where the wiper arm connection is going to be. We're going to suppose that this line here is the actual wiper arm and it's going to show its travel. This point here is going to be the linkage point that's going to move this wiper arm back and forth. And the final is these two marks here are going to represent the wiper motor as far as when it's moving the actual linkage. So now it's currently at 0, so 0 is going to represent what it is currently. And so I made a mark. So when the wiper motor starts, that's where it would be. Basically the end result or of any of its 2 points of travel. So when the wiper motor does this thing and goes over to the other end of the spectrum, you see that the distance that this wiper arm is going to travel is from here, this 0, to this 0. Now, if I move this pivot point closer towards the wiper arm connection, then the travel distance actually increases. So let's say we use C, for example. C is going closer towards this. Well, the C's new travel position will be from here to here. Now you can see the 0 in relation to the C. The C actually increases the travel distance. So on the other end of the spectrum, if I move this pivot point away from its original location, so let's try F2 for example. F2's motion would be from here to here. So you can see how it's smaller. Here's the original, here's F2, and here's the original, and here's F2. So that is my theory, and hopefully that will actually work when I actually do it to the wiper arm. So I'm going to have to do some tests, which means I'm going to have to remove the cowl panel, remove the wiper arms themselves, and take everything apart and start the process. Okay, so now that the cowl panel is removed, let me show you my idea as far as the theory that I have. Now you can see that right here there's linkage for the driver's side. So when I turn it on, you can see how it moves back and forth. So I need to limit that travel. So the idea is that if I was to make it slightly longer, then I would be able to make the movement less. So I'm going to see how that works out. Okay, so here's the linkage removed from the car. Basically, for all you guys that have asked before, how did I do this? And of course, I didn't start making videos on everything I did back when I was doing this. But basically, you see here, there's a rod, and this is the main rod right here. The connection, the original connection, was from this point to this point. So basically, just imagine those two together. I just basically cut it off and added this whole thing in the middle. Now the most important part in getting this correct is this rod here. Forget about these other rods. I'll explain to you what they are in a second. This rod here is the main rod and the one that's going to be controlling the wipers in their movements back and forth. Okay? Now these other rods, you can notice, if you notice, they're much thinner. These rods are actually just support rods. Because there's bends in this long run, I found that when I first created this, that there would be some flex right around here as the windshield wipers started to move. So the motor would push and pull, and in the pushing motion this would flex and it would make the wipers do this. So I didn't like that. I wanted it to be a nice smooth flowing, you know, motion. So when I added these rods in here, basically created two triangles, it strengthened up this rod, so now I don't have any flex. So that's basically it. So you can see my ugly welds. So I just opened this up and put the rod on the inside, you can see, and the same thing for here. I just opened this up and inserted the rod and then did ugly welds to hold it in place. And that's basically the mechanism. Now my theory involves this here. If you notice when I was showing the cardboard, this is the pivot point that controls this wiper portion where the wiper arm gets connected to. So if I bring this closer, this would move further. So in order for me to make it longer, what I would have to do is I would have to cut it right in the center and then add a plate and weld on the plate. Let me turn it around so you can see. I would weld the plate onto the back of this. That way I don't disturb this pivot point and this pivot point, basically just making this longer. Now the problem lies in the trial and error is figuring out how long to make it so that I can have my travel exactly the way I want. And that is where it becomes difficult, because getting to these bolts is quite a task, and putting this whole big thing in and out is also quite a task. So I'm gonna get to work on that, and when I get it situated, I'll let you know what I got. So after many tries, I think I got it. This is how the windshield wiper was originally when I first started, before I started cutting and hacking up and doing this modification. Basically really close to the bottom. So now I'm going to turn it on so you can see the travel after the mod, because I currently have it spot welded. I'm going to put this paper there for lubricity so that way the windshield wiper can flow nice and smooth. And it's not fully attached, so hopefully it doesn't fall. And you can see the travel. I'm going to turn it off at the top of his travel. There. That's the top of his travel. Let me take this off. And you can see that the windshield wiper is straight up and down. And I'm very happy with the way that laid out. And so now I'm going to put this paper back in. Ensure that my linkage is nicely in there. And I'm going to shut it off and let it park. There. It's parked. Let me remove the paper. And there it is. So now I'm going to take it off so I can finish welding it, and I'll have you guys look at it. So I got the linkage out again, and now I'll show you what I did. Basically, you can see I increased it by this much. So 3/8 of an inch, and that's it. I had originally calculated a 1/4 inch, and that was too low, and then I did 1/2 inch, and that was a little bit too much, and so then I went in between at 3/8, and that was just right. So I'm gonna weld it all up and show you what it looks like when it's all done. So here it is. Linkage is out. It's welded, and it's no longer going to be out after I put it back in. I sprayed it down with some truck bed coating to give it some durability and rust protection for my welds. And there's basically my handiwork. Ugly, but it doesn't matter. It'll never show. I pretty much filled the void with weld to make sure I give it maximum, strength. And just so that you know, the connection that I used was this thick piece of metal. So I don't think I'll have any problem with bending or flexing or anything of that nature. So I get to put this back in the car after this paint dries, and hopefully I will never have to take that cowl panel off again. I'm pretty tired of taking it off for little things that are occurring. First the windshield washer squirters, now this. But I don't think there's anything else that's going to make me or prompt me to take off that cowl panel after this sucker is back in the car. So once it dries, I'll put it back in the car and I'll show you the final results. So I got it all done. I got my body gaps the way they were before. Cowl panels installed. Squirter hoses are installed. And wiper arms are now installed. And for the trim, since I don't have it fully attached because I don't have the clips yet, I put tape to hold it as if it was, fully attached, so that I can see the distances between the wiper and the trim, as if it was, in its final assembly. And I'm going to turn it on and see where it stops. There it is. It's working like a charm. Let's stop it at its final. What's that? One more time. There. So there it is. So you can see that's pretty much where it's going to stop. Pretty much vertical. And the other wiper is where it was supposed to be stock. So it's not touching the bottom trim, and of course this one is not touching the bottom trim. So I render this a complete success. So now let's have it park. So there it is. It parked and right back to where it's supposed to be. I'm very happy with the results. And here's the other one. So let's remove the paper since it's all done. Now in California it doesn't rain a lot, so the wipers will probably not be used so much, but nonetheless it does rain, and if I'm ever caught driving a car in the rain, I want to be sure that my wipers work without going all the way out here the way it was before, and without hitting a trim or anything. So here are the wipers. Those are how they look. They look good. I also modified this angle by putting it in a vise and squeezing, and it opened it up. And I did the same thing for the driver's side wiper as well. And the reason why I did that is because I wanted both wipers to look identical. I like to have the wipers at the very bottom, very utmost bottom of the windshield, as you can see. That's just the look. Oh, it's blurring. That's the look I like. So when you're inside the car, the reason why I want it very low is so that when you're inside the car, when I'm driving, I don't want them up here. I want them as low as I can get them. So those are the wipers. So now I have maximum view from my windshield. So that's it. Car's done. Came out great. And now I don't have to worry anymore. See if this would focus. I don't have to worry anymore that my windshield wipers are wrong. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching.